Hey everyone, it's Roland, Wright, and I'm here today with something that is a little different from my channel. I don't really post a lot of content on here, but I did want to kind of start talking about some other different topics. Lately I've been playing a game called Flesh and Blood, this amazing TCG coming out of New Zealand, and also I've been playing a lot of LCGs from Fantasy Flight. Now I've been playing their LCGs for years, most recently of which is the Marvel Champions Cooperative LCG, which has been great. It's an awesome game. And as you can see here, I have one of the, of course, many characters in the game that will be in the game, Odin's son, aka Thor. But he's not why I'm here to talk to you guys today. So a while ago, my girlfriend's brother had a birthday, and I really wanted to do something special for him because he does enjoy this game. And his two favorite characters in the Marvel Universe are Captain Marvel and Ultron. Captain Marvel's already in the game. She's a base core box character. Ultron, however, will probably never be a playable character. He's only a villain. So I wanted to do something special for him, and I undertook the immense task of recreating the entire template of every card type in Marvel Champions, as you can see here, like these, and to craft an entire deck for him using Ultron. And so that's what I did. And ladies and gentlemen, here is the Hank Pym / Ultron card. Now, I did an entire deck, and so this very first thing we're going to look at is his identity. Ultron has gone through a lot of different phases throughout his life, and in the current Marvel comics, he is merged with Hank Pym, and Hank Pym's essentially dead, but Ultron adopts a lot of his personality. He starts off by trying to deceive the Avengers, pretending to still be Hank Pym, but in reality, he isn't. So I thought it was a very accurate to the current comics to design Hank Pym as the alter ego here. Now, one of the key things I want you to keep in mind when I go through all these cards is, first off, this is iteration 8. I ran through and tested 8 different iterations of design for this deck, and it was very difficult. I had 2 kind of core concepts I needed to follow. One was it needed to be thematic. I guess 3 core concepts. 1, it needed to be thematic. 2, it had to be fun. So obviously that's important in any design. And then 3, it had to match the person that I was making the deck for. So there were a lot of different versions of Ultron that I thought were very thematic and even fun, like a Minion Master kind of build and stuff like that. But ultimately I didn't think there was something that the person I'm giving this to was going to enjoy. So as we go through these cards, keep those things in mind as we look at them. So first off, we see Hank Pym. This is an alter ego for recovery. He's a cyborg type with the ability Deception. This is an action. Change your form. Play an event, reducing its cost by 1. Limit once per round. Hand size 6. Hit points 12. Flavor text. As you can see, there's not all that much organic left. It's still me in here though. And then if we flip over the identity card, we get Ultron. So this is a hero card with 1 thwart, 2 attack, 1 defense. It's an android with the ability Adamantium Body, Interrupt, Defense. When you take any amount of damage from an attack, reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. Hand size 5, hit points 12. And there you go. Pretty straightforward, no wonky crazy setup effects. I wanted to keep it as a very actionable hero. Events actually play a huge part to his identity to some degree. More so than I would say other characters. So there you go, that's Ultron. Let's keep him on his hero side for now, and let's move on. So the first thing we got, usually in most hero decks, also actually before I continue, let's compare. So here is Ultron and here is Thor. Can you tell which one is custom made? I hope not, because I worked really hard to make sure it would be very difficult. Now, the text box on this one, you can kind of tell the action lines are certainly harder to see, and they're not the same. Ultimately, that was just kind of a sacrifice I had to make. They also looked darker on my photo editing software than they do in the end product. Obviously, the end product, it's very light. But, oh well, I don't expect everything to actually be a perfect 1-for-1, but yeah. Alright, so first off, in all hero decks, we have some kind of signature ally. In the event of Thor, it is Lady Sif. And in the event of Ultron, I did something a little different. All these heroes, Thor, Captain America, etc., have one signature ally that's unique. You can only have one copy of them in play. Ultron, we're going to have, as you might have just saw, 3 Ultron sentries. They're all identical, they're not unique at all, and essentially they're a 1 cost, 1 thwart, 1 attack with consequential damage on both, 1 hit point, and then the response after Ultron enters play, deal 2 damage to an enemy or remove 2 threat from a scheme, and it's a drone type. So you have 3 of these to play with. They're great. Essentially they're a 2 cost, thwart 3 or attack 3 or body block and then do 2 of either. It's a very solid card. This, I will say, bothers me a lot, but I guess when I was exporting these cards, I must have accidentally clicked and dragged this red line, because I know in my proofs that red line was not extended like that. Might be hard to see exactly what I mean. Actually, maybe you can compare it here. Yeah, you can kind of see it there. The red line on this extends all the way to this bottom white line. Annoying, but whatever. I'll fix it and then probably reprint this later. Anywho, so that's the Ultron Drones, Ultron Sentries. Pretty interesting. You'll see them again later. As I mentioned, I was thinking of doing like a Minion Master build, and there were a couple different iterations that actually really worked. I just didn't want them to be the core focus to Ultron. I think they serve this kind of, I think they serve the minion role of, hey, I need you to go do this thing, or sacrifice yourself for me. Either one. Next up, we have an event card called Age of Ultron. There are 2 copies of this in the deck. They are a wild resource card, 1 cost, hero interrupt. When a boost card is turned face up, cancel all boost and star icons on that card. Ultron gains a tough status card. This is, I think, the only card I designed that used wording different than what the official Marvel Champions game uses. I don't think Marvel Champions ever specifically calls them star icons. I think they call them boost icons or something else. I don't remember. Boost ability. I prefer calling them star icons, and then boost icons are the little triangle ones. So I differentiated from there to be more clear on what it does. But besides that, I think this is a pretty strong card. However, it's strong in terms of if you're looking at this on its own and then comparing it to the rest of the game, this is a very strong card. However, it's not strong when you compare it to the rest of Ultron's kit. Ultron desperately needed a card like this. When I did all my playtesting, even with Adamantium Body maybe saved him from a couple damage a game, but it wasn't enough. He needed some way to further mitigate disaster. Enter Age of Ultron. I think it's very thematic. It's great in multiplayer because you can help cover your teammates with it, and it keeps Ultron in hero form longer, which is kind of the goal here. I want you to pretty much in hero form a majority of the time. Alright, next up, we got 2 copies of Encephalo Beam. So this is a 3-cost event, attack, superpower, energy resource type, hero action, attack, deal 5 damage to an enemy. This attack gains overkill. Stun the villain if this attack deals damage to it. So I kind of pulled inspiration from Heroic Strike to this. Actually, I pulled some inspiration from Cap a little bit on in this design in general, because I actually liked how it felt and thought it was kind of thematic to Ultron. This is a very overpowering effect. In the comics, Encephalo Beam is this kind of thing he uses to mind control people, but over time he also uses it more as this, as you can tell, a very obvious energy blast. So the dealing 5 damage for 3, technically 4 resources because of the card itself, that's okay. It's actually not that great, but when it has overkill and whenever you can stun the villain with an attack, that's a big deal. And this is great for wiping out those 4 health or lower minions, especially ones with guard. It's phenomenal with. And then it stuns the villain. Once again, for a similar reason that Age of Ultron's nice, it keeps you in your villain side longer. So that's Encephalo Beam. Next up, we got 1 copy of Program Transmitter. So this is a 4-cost event, superpower tech, action, play up to 3 drones from your discard pile, and then mental resource. So this is a very straightforward card. You have as many drones in your discard pile, you get to play them all for free. It's very strong and can lead to a very good turn, but keep in mind, Ultron's hand size is only 5. This is your entire hand, pretty much, and you get to pull out these 3 drones. I love it. It's great. There's only 1 copy of the deck, as there should be. It essentially gives you a really strong burst turn. You have a lot of body blockers if needed. You can get a lot of damage or threat removal out if needed. Numerically, each of those Ultron drone sentries are effectively 2 resource each, so that's 6 resources. You're spending 5 resources playing this card, so in total you have maybe a little discount. However, if you combine it with something like Hank Pym's Deception ability, it becomes 4 resources for 6 total value. So really good card. Enjoy it. It's of course only a 1 cost for that reason. And then next up, the last for events, is 3 copies of Rage of Ultron. So one of the things that's very important for a character, no matter, I consider this kind of build to be a very aggressive, damage-centric build, but you do need some way to help mitigate threat and tie that into the ultimate theme, and that's where we get Rage of Ultron. This is a 0 cost event with the hero action Thwart, Exhaust Ultron, remove threat from a scheme equal to Ultron's basic attack. Draw a card. So this is kind of similar to Captain America, who has a card like Heroic Determination or something like that, which is just increases thwart value by 1 for the turn and then draw a card. Similar concept here. It essentially allows you to activate Ultron and convert his attack into thwart as needed, and then you draw a card to replace Rage of Ultron. Really, really good card, especially if you're playing like aggression or just doing well as Ultron in general, and I'll get into that in a moment. But when you're playing aggression, you could put combat training on Ultron. His attack goes from 2 to 3, so this lets you essentially thwart for 3 with Ultron. So awesome card, very required, which is why there's 3 copies of it. Without it, Ultron was very much struggling with schemes. Now, actually, before I move on, let's go ahead and also compare events. We got Defender of the Realms here and Rage of Ultron, and so you can get an idea. I think I did a pretty good job at keeping them mostly the same, especially at a glance, because you're going to be looking at these cards the majority of the time at a glance. You can tell the 0 in the top left is certainly different. It's just the nature of having to best guess what font works, right? All right, now we got the upgrades. So this is a huge one. This is his concussion blasters. So this plays into Rage of Ultron very nicely. It's a 1 cost upgrade tech. You get 2 of them. They're both restricted. So obviously restricted typically represents the hand being used up for some kind of weapon. So you can get 2 of these out. They give Ultron +1 attack, and you can exhaust a concussion blaster to choose one. Either your next basic attack gains overkill or your next basic attack gains piercing. So both of those options are great. If you have both of these out, you can exhaust to gain both of those benefits, which is obviously super nice, being able to have both overkill and piercing on a basic attack. Now, of course, this boosts your attack by 1. So you have both of these out. Your Rage of Ultron allows you to remove 4 threat from a scheme, essentially. So really good card, and hopefully very thematic to Ultron. And of course, like I said, synergizes with combat training quite nicely. And then the very last card in the deck is Technoforming. This card went through a lot of different design iterations. Ultimately settled on something that I think is reasonable. It's fairly thematic. It's not perfect. I'm not super happy with it, but it got really complicated in some of the different designs. So I wanted to keep it simple, stupid. So here we go. We got a 1 cost upgrade, preparation, transformation, response. When you defeat a minion, discard Technoforming, deal damage to an enemy equal to the combined scheme and attack of the defeated minion. So you defeat one of those Masters of Evil that oftentimes have a 1 and 3 or 2 and 2 stat. There you go, you get to do 4 damage to another minion or to the villain. It's a really solid card. I think balance-wise, my thought process here was most minions have either 4 combined value or lower. For 2 resources, 1 and then the card itself, 2 resources, you should be dealing about 4 damage, give or take maybe 1 or 2. Or give or take maybe 1, I wouldn't even say 2. So the fact that you should be trying to trigger this on a minion with a combined value of 4 or higher, you can get a good amount of value of this. Maybe at 3 you can get some, and then 2 or less I wouldn't really trigger this on. But I think it's pretty solid. It allows you to have your the opponent's minions turn against each other. You can use Encephalo Beam to overkill a minion that then stuns the villain, and then have Technoforming trigger where that minion hits another minion in play. There's a lot of really fun comboing going on with Technoforming. Oh, and then lastly, I will go ahead and compare upgrades. So we got Technoforming, and then of course we got Mjolnir. This one I'm also pretty happy with. I had to revisit the nameplate, as they call it, because my original one wasn't really up to par. But yeah, really happy with how that came out. And so there you go, guys. There's my custom Ultron, fully printed. This is on pretty much the same amount, same card stock that you would expect the game to be on. The cards are very slightly larger out of sleeve than the actual cards, but because they're going into sleeves, I don't really care. So anyway, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll probably do another character in the future shortly, so see you then.